In the last video, I reviewed the criteria you might use to search your database for major gift prospects, focusing first on largest prior gifts and the most loyal donors. I suggested creating 3 queries to group constituents that meet various giving criteria. That done, each constituent within the query would then be reviewed one at a time on a name-by-name basis, taking into account not just prior giving, but the full record. So what other factors might we look at when assigning a major gift target code? Job title and place of employment are the first 2 criteria I look at. For example, if I saw that somebody was an attorney, that would get my attention. But my next question would be, what firm are they with? If the person is a small-town lawyer with an office in a strip mall, well, that might be a $25,000 prospect. On the other hand, I've run into lawyers that were senior counsel for ExxonMobil or other large corporations. In this case, the target code might be somewhere between $50,000 and $250,000, depending upon age, family factors, and a number of other factors. You get the idea. Job title and place of employment tell you a lot. For many of my clients, the person's job title and place of employment are not listed in a separate field specifically used for that purpose. Rather, they're sometimes casually referenced in the notepad section of the database. In other cases, a former development director may have simply alluded to it in an action note. For example, making mention that she met with Mrs. Jones on the 29th floor of her corporate office on Main Street, leaving me to reason, oh, they must work for XYZ Corporation. And then I Google the corporation's website to confirm the executive leadership. Or, in other cases, I sometimes see notes mentioning that the constituent is a brother or a child of someone who we know is very, very wealthy. As you can see, a bit of sleuthing is required. It takes some time to review the full record, which is why we want to begin with a manageable number of constituents. As you assign target codes, don't confuse capacity with willingness. By capacity, I mean the ability to make a very large gift. By willingness, I mean the person's philanthropic intent toward your particular organization. Your database probably contains the names of thousands of constituents. Some people have capacity, but no willingness to make a major gift. Others are willing to make a major gift, but don't have the ability, the capacity to do so. These are the people who tell you, gosh, you know, if I win the lottery, you'll be first in line. Ideally, we want to find individuals who have both capacity and willingness. As we identify and code these people in the database, it's like we're setting them aside, placing them in priority order according to their ability to make a major gift to the campaign. And if we've done a good job of identifying and qualifying major gift prospects, when we launch the campaign, each yes, each major gift helps propel the next. Of the 2 factors influencing major gifts, capacity and willingness, we have no control over a person's capacity. We've got no control over their financial circumstances. That's controlled by the economy and whether their boss chooses to give them a promotion. But what we do have some control over, however, is their willingness. Now, how do we influence their willingness to make a major gift? By finding creative ways to involve them in the work of the ministry early on, ways that use their best gifts and talents. Remember this simple truth: involvement precedes investment. There's a very high correlation between those individuals who have been involved in the work of your organization and those who have the willingness to make a major gift. For example, imagine 2 graduates from the class of 1980, both of whom have had a great experience and love your school. Imagine that both went on to highly successful careers and both became multimillionaires. If one of them had served on your board of directors while the other did not, which one would likely have a greater willingness to make a major gift? It's obvious, the one who sat on your board. In my judgment, all things being equal, the volunteer involvement by the one graduate would earn him a target code of, say, C1, while his classmate, the one not involved, would be assigned a target code of C4. In short, I would judge both graduates to be capable of making a $250,000 gift, thus the C rating. But one is judged more likely to do so. That's why one got a C1 and the other got a C4 target code. Is there any other data that you might search on in your database? Probably. I often find a whole host of residual attribute codes that prior development directors have added to the database. For example, your database might have what I call homegrown income and wealth codes. For example, I was reviewing constituents from a client database a few years ago, and I discovered an attribute code in one person's record labeled Special 1, special and the number 1. And I thought, what in the world could a field called Special 1 refer to? I was stumped. Then I began to notice that some people had a single dollar sign in that field, others had $2 signs, and still others had $3 signs in that particular field. Then it dawned on me, this was like the rating systems you see in tourist magazines that indicate how pricey a restaurant might be. Luckily, the database administrator had been at this organization for over a decade. And when I inquired about this attribute field and the mysterious dollar sign coding system, she explained to me that the more dollar signs, the better. It was as simple as that, and not very objective. But at least it told me that someone at some point along the way, though we still don't know when, someone thought this person had money. It was one more soft factor I looked into when I considered what to assign as a rating code. Now, in this case, I was lucky to have someone around to explain the purpose of the field and the meaning of the coding system. However, most of the databases that I've worked with have some sort of coding systems, but with no documentation. No one wrote down the name of the field and defined what each code meant. Sadly, employees turned over and the codes were essentially orphaned in the database system. The codes still exist in individual records, but nobody knows what they mean. Let's summarize. When looking for major gift prospects, begin by examining prior gift history. Then, see if you can find any reference to job title or place of employment. Next, if you know the area well, you probably know the wealthier parts of town. Look at the address and the zip code. And then, after you have some sense regarding capacity, the ability to make a major gift, make a judgment call concerning willingness. And to determine how likely it is that a person makes a major gift, simply take into account the degree to which they have been meaningfully involved in the work of the organization. For example, take into account past and present board and committee assignments. Has the person served as a graduation speaker or an alumni mentor? Do they serve as a host couple at your annual banquet? Remember, involvement precedes investment. And the greater the involvement, the higher the odds that they will make a major gift commensurate with their abilities. Finally, look at the homegrown attribute codes that prior development directors may have added to the database. You may find someone else's judgment call concerning the person's ability to make a major gift. Now, this name-by-name review of records is tedious to say the least. I've had days where I spent 5 hours reviewing individual records to find a single $250,000 prospect. And by the time that those 5 hours elapsed, let me tell you, it felt like a wasted day. But when you think about it, if that person comes through with their $250,000 gift, I was making $50,000 an hour. So keep that in mind when you feel like quitting.